So here is the chapter 2 about the spiritual body. André Luiz is going to take us in a journey about the underpinnings of the spiritual body, from the portrait of our spiritual body to the vital centers, some main primary vital centers like the crown center or chakra, as people say, the mental structure of the cells, their relationship with the vital centers, interesting aspects about the externalization of the vital centers during your sleep time, and what happens to the spiritual body after death. It's a quite unique chapter, something which is quite unprecedented on the spiritual science per se. And Spiritism is here for this, to teach us precisely what we do with our lives and how much it impacts on our physical life. The dichotomy, mind and body, is gone. Descartes had his mindset about it, but nowadays science is proving to us day in, day out that the Spiritist philosophy is right. Although not directly in this manner, but it's showing to us that spirit, mind and body are interconnected. And that's what we're going to learn in this chapter. So first and foremost, we have a spiritual body. We need to understand what it is. I remember to date somebody telling me and asking, why do I need to know about my perispirit or spiritual body? Why? Because that's the body you're going to be using for immortality? Is that the reason why? Maybe. So if you have something that you're going to keep for a long time and want to use well, and you be in need of using it well to succeed at your tasks and accomplishments, and of course, we want to know why we have this body. How did we get here? How much of it influences our physical life? How much of it will be with us in the afterlife? So André Luiz begins by telling us it's very important to know that our spiritual body is not a reflex of the physical body. It's actually the reverse. As he says, the physical body reflects the spiritual body as much as the spiritual body reflects in itself the mental body, which molds its formation. So when we look at ourselves in the mirror, the realization is the physical body we're seeing is actually a byproduct of the need in this reincarnation and of what we have already created in the spiritual body. So what we're seeing is not us, number one. We're not the bodies we have temporarily. Two, we can change it, because as we change our minds, it changes our spiritual body, it imprints in the physical body. We're not talking about one lifetime alone, we're talking about many lifetimes. So, André Luiz tells us something which is quite interesting, which changes the nature of our behaviors in our everyday life. He says that after death, the spiritual body is the physical vehicle par excellence, meaning after this physical life, the spiritual body we have is going to be our vehicle with its electromagnetic structure. So it is matter. It is matter. Electromagnetic means it is energy. Parts of it are more dense than the other parts, denser than the others. Parts of it are more quintessenced because it's connected to the mental body. So that's why André Luiz matches so much with Allan Kardec. He doesn't go wrong. Parenthesis here for us. He goes so much in attunement with Kardec's work, especially in the Spirit's book, that he explains things to us basically in the same order. When we open the Spirit's book, the first thing is about God, and he begins first chapter, the divine plasma, and the whole 9 yards of creation, from creation to co-creation. And then he talks about chapter 2, which is the spiritual body, and he's going to tell us later on that our co-creation is basically at a lesser plane, first and foremost, co-creating this spiritual body. So it is energy, it is matter. It has an electromagnetic structure, which is more complex than our physical body, by the way. and science on earth is still striving to know more about the physical body, imagine about what Deepak Chopra talks, the quantum body. It could be the ethereal body, the etheric body, whatever name we give to it. We know it has a very specific structure, somewhat modified in regard to two parts of it when we are in the deceased form. The genetic, or let's say the reproductive part of it, and the nutrition part of it, according to the acquisitions of the mind that manages it. So two aspects of our life here that will completely change in its expression, the spiritual body in the afterlife. The reproductive areas, for obvious reasons, and the nutrition area. Not that we won't need it, but it will be changed. But he says it depends on what the level of our minds. So for a very illuminated spirit, those centers will be vibrating at a different pace than less evolved spirits. So the spiritual body also has features. The beauty of it, it's a living shrine. The concept is so deep and profound that it makes us feel like we have created a whole temple inside of ourselves, around us as well, because the perispirit, that's the name, it surrounds us, the spirits. It envelops us, as Kardec mentions. So it is a living shrine. So that's why what we think reflects first there and then everywhere else. It has dynamic resources, meaning it's plastic. That's why he says it's extremely porous and plastic. That's why we get into places, and only Kardec explains this in the Genesis when he talks about the spiritual fluids. We get into a location and feel, oh, I feel so good here. We start feeling it. People say, oh, I feel the vibes, etc. Sure, but not through the physical body. We feel it through the perispirit because it has pores. It exchanges vibrations and energies with the environment, spiritually speaking. And it's plastic, meaning it's moldable, it's possible to be changed according to our thoughts and feelings. So we can evolve. As we evolve, the spiritual body evolves. And there is no limit to this progress. Can be one lifetime, can be many lifetimes. It's up to the effort we make upon it. And condition and morphology. The condition and morphology of the spiritual body depends on our mental body, the mental field. Is it healthy? So when people talk about aura, they are talking about the connection between the spiritual body and the physical body, aura, where the vital centers are expressed to this level. So we're mentioning this because many people confuse aura with the spiritual body. Aura is as if we can say like a layer of it. It's a layer. So we already know, according to some experience, that it changes because of our minds. Here we're going to learn more about the vital centers. Quite interesting when he reminds us vital centers for us in Spiritism is what for the other spiritual philosophies is there named as chakra. The names don't matter. But here it matters because André Luiz wants us to be assured that these centers are there for the exchange of vitality, for the nourishment. So that's why he keeps insisting that we absorb the concept vital centers. He says, in the spiritual body we have all the equipment of automated features governing the billions of microscopic entities. This is interesting. He says these vital centers are like governing these billions of microscopic entities. And they have automated features. And only in chapters 3, 4, 5 of this book, later on we're going to understand what he means about automated. We'll get back there when we get to the chapters. These resources were slowly acquired, and that's what we mean in millennia, but we'll see like feature by feature. Slowly acquired in millennia through effort and recapitulation in the multiple sectors of the development of the soul, or anemic development. Spiritual law of life. He's telling us spiritual law of life. We grow, we learn, we progress when we make effort and we repeat the lesson. If we want to evolve, there's no other way. We need to use our will. As Leon Denis says in the book, In the Afterlife, will is the driving force of the soul. We need to exercise it, make efforts, and recapitulate the lesson, and then we're going to master it and make it automated, second nature. So that's why André Luiz teaches us that discipline comes before spontaneity. For something to happen spontaneously, it first happens under some type of discipline, which is effort and recapitulation. So we love discipline. We start looking discipline at a whole new perspective. It's not an imprisoning mechanism, it's actually a learning mechanism. And in that way, he says, the spiritual body governs the functional activity of the organs cited by terrestrial physiology. So these vital centers, they are going to guide, because they belong to the spiritual body, guide the life in our physical body. Do we still have any doubt on the reasons why? We need to know more about this body. That's why this whole book is dedicated to the ins and outs of the spiritual body. You will find nowhere else on earth a book on this depth that combines science, philosophy, and religion with such major reasoning for us, which is the good faith. Faith without reasoning can't go anywhere. So he goes into the coronal chakra or crown chakra or center, vital center. He says it's located in the region, the central region of the brain, which is considered the seat of the mind, symbolically speaking. And this center assimilates the stimuli from the higher planes, guides the form, the movement, stability, our physical body's metabolism as well, and the consciousness of the incarnate or discarnate soul in the fields of learning that corresponds to the soul in the planetary shelter. Quite straightforward for us. We'll get back to details in the near future. And it supervises the outer vital centers. Now, this crown chakra or crown center is quite interesting because it is the point of interaction between the determining forces of the spirit and the organized physio-psychosomatic forces. What is this physio-psychosomatic forces? The spiritual body. André Luiz, again and again, subliminally or directly, he tells us about, in his expressions, what the spiritual body is. It has its physical part, it's connected to the mind, and it's going to express all of it in itself. So it is a body. This center sends the current of vitalizing energy. So we receive it and then sends it, formed of spiritual stimuli with diffusible action. So from there, it's going to be diffused onto the mental matter that involves it. Thus, it transmits to the other centers of the soul the living reflections of our feelings, ideas, and actions, as much as these same centers, interdependent amongst them, imprint similar reflexes in the organs and other implements of our particular constitution, shaping in ourselves the pleasant or the unpleasant effects of our influence and conduct. So, if we deny our emotions, we are going to deny our own existence, because it's going to be fully functioning at all levels, from our minds to our spiritual body to the physical body. Finally, neuroscience came to the conclusion that our emotions are integral to the process of reasoning, said Dr. Damasio, one of the greatest leaders in the field of the neuroscience of emotion. And this happened very recently. But André Luiz in 1958, he already disclosed that emotions are a big part of our lives. And it reflects in our spiritual body. That's why emotions appear. So when Luiz Hay very wisely put together the book, You Can Heal Your Life, with the description of the symptoms, the diseases, the thought patterns, the feelings, and how we transform it, she brought us into this world, this realm of feelings and how much it permeates our bodies. And Spiritism comes to explain what was happening on the other side of life. And in that regard, it is pushed to the organs of our physical body as well. So whatever feels pleasant or unpleasant is going to be influenced there. So if we're feeling some pleasantness or unpleasantness, we can't run away from it. Inevitably, we need to face it. There are other vital centers that are secondary and they depend upon each other. That's why André Luiz mentioned they are intertwined by plexiform networks in the psychosoma, which is the perispirit, another expression he uses, and consequently in the physical body. The cerebral center is the one that is also named frontal chakra, or different names. These chakras have different names according to different philosophies. The cerebral center, says André Luiz, is adjacent to the crown center, because the crown center is on the top of the head, the cerebral one is pretty much here, which is also named the third eye. And it has a very important influence over the other vital centers or chakras. It pretty much governs the encephalic cortex in support of the senses. It coordinates the activity of the endocrine glands, and it administers the nervous system in all of its organization, coordination, activity, and mechanism, from the sensory neurons to the effector cells. So this is so vital to all of us that in conjunction with the nervous system, the frontal center, cerebral center, or third eye will be governing the cells of these parts of the body. Now, the throat center or throat chakra is the one that controls breathing and phonation, speaking. We will see later in this book more understanding about each and every chakra. This is just André Luiz summary and overview about them. The heart center or heart chakra manages, as we know, emotions and also the circulation of the body. The spleen center, which is quite vital, determines all activities which expresses the hepatic system within the range of the volume of the bloodstream, which is quite fundamental. Very recently, people who are scholars in the studies of the passes or the healing in Spiritism, the healing technique or the passes, talk about this center as being very important to the recovery of depression, something to be seen and studied in the future. The solar plexus or the gastric center is responsible for digestion, absorption of dense or less dense food, then in any way represents concentrated fluids that penetrate the organization. Quite an important formation of vital fluid there. The reproductive center guides the modeling of new forms among humankind or the establishment of creative stimuli in order to foster work, the association and achievement amongst the souls. We will learn in this chapter 2 of the book Evolution in Two Worlds that André Luiz reveals to us that the cells have mental structure. All of them are rooted in the mind of the spirit. Let us remember that André Luiz firsthand revealed to us that the mental body is modeling
the spiritual body, perispirit, and the spiritual body or perispirit is modeling the physical body. So the cells in the physical body, the cells in the perispirit are of mental origin, which are immersed in the divine plasma. So these vital centers or chakras are energetic fulcrums, meaning vortex of energy, that under the automated direction of the soul imprint high specialization to the cells through which human beings have in their dense body. These cells obey the orders of the spirit. Again and again, André Luiz is going to remind us that everything that happens in our spiritual body, in our physical body, everything, no exception whatsoever, needs the guidance, the command of the mind of the spirit. No wonder nowadays science is proving to us that no matter if science reveals that mind is extrasensorial or not, the revelation is that the mind commands the body. In our case, we know the mind is extrasensorial, it's extra-physical, and then it commands the body. A very interesting and important aspect of this chapter. That's why André Luiz told us that this book contains a whole lot of information regarding the consolation of our souls. He brings new perspectives, such as this one. He reveals to us that our vital centers are externalizable. What is it? Let's see. He says, the spiritual body, or psychosoma, is an electromagnetic vehicle, like the physical body. So he's telling us the nature of this body. And he says more, the vital centers or chakras are exteriorizable. He's talking about a characteristic that probably you haven't heard anywhere else. But the Spiritist science brings to us the revelation. When the individual is incarnated, this phenomenon usually happens with the presence of discarnate doctors and nurses during the common sleep time as a form of dissuading the physically ill patients from all of the latitudes of the earth in order to shape renewals and transformations in the cell behavior through interventions in the spiritual body according to the law of merit. What a beautiful technique here. He's going to tell us more before we explain. These resources will become popular in the terrestrial medicine in Earth's great future. This was written to us in 1958. He is prophetically opening a perspective for us who work in the health field. He's telling to us that there is a phenomenon that happened to us incarnates when we are asleep, which is something that Kardec told us in the Spirit's book without the underpinnings of these mechanisms. And as any science, it progresses and unfolds in details. And finally, precisely after 100 years of Spiritism, Spiritism was codified with the Spirit's book in 1857. In 1958, 101 years later, André Luiz is allowed to come and share that what Kardec revealed to us in the Spirit's book about the intelligent sleep, about the fact that during sleep time, we can gather together, regain the society of spirits superior to ourselves, talk to them, be instructed by them, and be treated by them. Now comes with André Luiz with the mechanism. He's telling us that for the fact that our vital centers are this vortex of energy, they are exteriorizable during the time that our bodies are asleep. If we have merit, if we have credit, the good spirits can come and do true surgical operations onto us to renew ourselves, to transform ourselves. So the question is, what are we doing? What are we doing to deserve the surgical approaches every night? Do we pray before we do something? Besides praying, do we walk our path during the day to make sure that we receive the guidance, the care that we need? You can prepare yourself by saying a prayer before going to bed. Eating not too much food, because that blocks this exteriorization of the vital centers. And allowing yourself to receive this treatment. So André Luiz is telling us also that during the time that we die, the physical body dies, our spiritual body is going to be changed in two major vital centers or chakras, which are, he says, this psychosoma is still a body of a variable length, according to the emotional balance and the cultural advancement of those who govern it beyond the physiological vehicle. It is telling us something that Kardec told us clearly in the Genesis, that the perispirit evolves as we evolve. It expands as our minds expands. So that's why the length. And the emotional balance and our knowledge will rule the dynamics of this body. So let's observe that he gives to this body different names. The spiritual body that St. Paul mentioned to us is mentioned by Allan Kardec as the perispirit. And then André Luiz comes and gives us more labels to it so we understand it more fully. He names it psychosoma, he names it physio-psychosomatic vehicle as well. What he wants us to understand is that this body is under the governing mind of the spirit. And finally, he wraps up this beautiful chapter when he talks about the portrait of the spiritual body by telling us that this spiritual body can undergo multiple changes. In this case, he's telling us that these changes will go according to our improvement. He says this body, which evolves and improves in the experiences of action and reaction in the earthly plane and the spiritual realms that are borderline, is likely to suffer multiple changes. So this body evolves as we evolve, just like on earth. As we change, in an analogy, as we change from one socio-economic position to another, we change the way we dress. As we change to a new job, a different phase in our life, we change the way we dress. In a similar way, but much more automated, as we evolve, we change according to our emotional state, according to our cultural advancement. This spiritual body is also going to change, which is quite interesting phenomenon. Because remember, he said at the very beginning, it's a quite plastic, porous body. It's changeable, moldable. And he says, that's the reason why we need to pay attention to certain disorders of the soul that can impact this physical body. For example, he says, when we are emotionally in low energetics, what happens to us is what he calls anemia, meaning lack of dynamism. For example, the mental state of remorse can cause what we say energetically the anemia, and that can trigger a whole cascade of events in the physical body. Also, when we are in the higher energetics, but not the healthy one, which he calls a hyperdynamia, it also imposes disturbances, like the deliriums of imagination, people who don't keep life simple. Pride and selfishness can hyperexcite our minds, so instead of being simple in life and seeing how we can be kind and gentle here in the here and now, we start thinking of these impossible dreams of helping and reaching out to people that we'll never accomplish because we will only reach out to those who are at our arm's reach. So, in that regard, André Luiz is reminding us that our spiritual body will receive the input of our minds, the mental body, and as such is going to trigger or reflect its either health or unhealthy state to the physical body. But as he says here, we evolve and improve this body as well in the afterlife. We'll see more about this, how this can happen in the next chapters of the book, Evolution in Two Worlds.